There is a snowstorm outside, and I need some fresh air, and you're coming with me. I can't do this philosophical journey on my own. I need some wise companionship. Let's go.
Never really know what's going on.
And we're out. In the alive nature, doing its thing, unpredictable, roaring. Actually, I thought the topic I wanted to explore today is surrender, because that's such like central piece to self-inquiry or the spiritual path of this surrendering. And I think I still don't know what it means, but I'd love to share my perspective on how it has unfolded and how it is still unfolding for me. So my initial understanding of surrendering was kind of like surrendering to the life circumstances, being okay in every environment. And I still think that's true. I still think that's part of surrender. Like, oh, I'm in a job situation I don't really like. Can I stay here? Can I sit in this meeting? Can I give up my resistance, or not give up my resistance, but rather be okay with my resistance? Surrendering to right now, this moment is like it is. And that in itself is a huge relief once we start working with that. Or and that is in itself a huge relief, starting to realize that me resisting what is in this moment is only causing me suffering. Can I accept the fact that right now part of me does not like sitting in this meeting? Oh, okay, how does that feel in my body? What thoughts comes up? It becomes an interesting exploration. It all of a sudden becomes a journey into the present moment, where my dislike and my discomfort and my different defense mechanisms and preferences are explored. And the freedom that comes with that. Actually, my freedom or my inner being isn't obscured by the surrounding environment or whatever's happening. But then at one point, this was a couple of years back, I was at a festival during the summer, a little bit up north, and I'd been to some kind of workshop, and I came out. I remember it very vividly. I was walking across the grass, feeling very like vividly and alive. And then this old defense pattern came up of like, oh no, I didn't want you to grow like this. This is not an approved way of growing, or like I didn't sanction this. And it was so odd for me, because I remember thinking like, well, who sanctions how I grow? If I have decided to expand or remove my limitations, then all limitations have to be on the table. And that kind of created this terror in my body of like, oh, fuck. Oh, whatever you say. I did not sign up for that. I'm not sure I signed up. I was expected to grow so that I could become better at whatever I wanted to achieve in life, so that I could be more successful, so that I could kind of arrange my life so I'm not a limitation to become or to create the life that I wanted. And at that moment, I realized that no, this has become bigger. I cannot use my spiritual insights in the service of creating a life or a persona that I would like to have. It's the opposite. I have to give myself to this journey. I have to surrender kind of like my own goals, how I would like to design my life, and rather follow I don't have a word for this exact thing that I wanted to follow, but like I need to my life will take the shape of whatever truth is telling me to go. I can no longer be using this technique in order to make my current relationship better, in order to make me stay at this work, in order for me to become a better coach. No, it's the opposite. I will have to follow the guidance of this inner wisdom. And this is the pivoting thing about surrendering, because all of a sudden it didn't just mean surrender to the circumstances that my life presented me. It also meant surrender to whatever this inner wisdom is asking me to do, or like where it's guiding me. And that might mean some terrifying things. It actually might be resigning from that job that I don't like. Yes, I can sit in this specific meeting and surrender and be with whatever comes up, but on a deeper level, I have to also surrender to the fact that this is not where I am sharing my gifts. This is not where I create value. Even though it pays well, it gives me social status. It's a no. That might mean some financial insecurities. That might mean having to face some social dilemmas. But I'm not surrendering in order to stay in a life where truth isn't reinforced, where I'm not living my truth. No, it's the other way. I surrender to my inner guidance. Yeah. Because there's this quote, or like a story that goes, there was a woman who was sitting on a park bench, enjoying the view, just resting in being. And then there were some youngsters coming and making a lot of noise close to the bench. And they were becoming louder and louder. And the woman tried to sit there and surrender to the moment. And after 20 minutes or so, she gave up and left. And she felt like she'd failed. And then she asked her spiritual guider, or her master, spiritual master or something. And she asked, well, what would have been the enlightened response to do in that moment? Because I couldn't surrender. And he said, well, the enlightened response would have been to leave earlier. Don't surrender if you don't have to. And that is such a, like, it was for me, it was just like, oh, wow, that's what, that's it as well. Like that also means using your agency, following that inclination that says, I don't like it here. I'd rather be somewhere else. And if I can change that, then it's also within the flow of truth to actually change that. Because I know Eckhart Tolle has told this story, that he was asked whether if he could work in a nightclub, like what would he do if he had to stand behind the bar of a nightclub and loud noise, drunk people, lots of commotion. And he kind of laughed and said like, well, if I could have left that job, I would have left it. And if that would have been impossible, then I would have to surrender. And I could do that. But I wouldn't surrender it if I didn't have to. And this is the key point, I think, that I'm trying to get to. Like, you only surrender when you're left with no other option. You don't surrender to a comfortable life situation because you're afraid of change. No, that's not what you surrender to. Then you have surrendered to fear. You also don't surrender to staying in a relationship that doesn't feel truthful because you're afraid to be alone. It's so easy to surrender to the wrong thing. We think we're surrendering like for spiritual truth, but we're actually surrendering to our own fear. And this is a hole that is so easy to fall into. And I'm not saying that I've cracked this code. God, no. I keep surrendering to the wrong thing over and over again. So I think each of us have to figure out what this means for ourselves. When to surrender to the present moment and when to follow the impulse to change something, even though we don't know where we're going to land. And I think that's the, how do you say, like the messiness of trying to live truth, that if you want to be in this world fully embodied, it's not about being okay with everything, or on a higher level you're okay with everything, but that means also being okay with your impulse to change, with your impulse to interact, with your impulse to have agency, to quit your job, to go on a holiday, to buy that house, to say yes to a relationship that you don't really understand where it's going, to invest in a creative outlet that might not make you money in the end. It doesn't make sense. You don't know why. And for me, one of the ways I know whether it is actually like my intuition speaking or if it's coming from fear, it's whether it's trying to justify itself. Because if I'm doing something because I'm afraid, it usually has a lot of good reasons. It says, well, you should or shouldn't quit your job because of A, B, and C. And if you stay here, then in 2 years, this can happen, blah, blah, blah. And if you decide to go on this journey, then we might achieve. So it has like a whole story attached to it. It has a promise of what's going to happen. While intuition doesn't work like that for me, it just has a whisper of, you should stay here. And then I kind of ask, well, why? It makes no sense. It doesn't give a reason. It's just quiet. That's usually how I know it's intuition. It doesn't need to justify itself. It is just this delivering what I should do without telling me why. And the way it's sensed in my body is usually some kind of calmness. Yes, there might be fear and it might be confusion intertwined with it as well. But at a deeper level, there is contact with this peace, softness, aliveness, I guess you could say. And that's where I should surrender to. Whether it's telling me to stay put or whether it's telling me to leave, I surrender to that voice and deal with the fears that comes up, deals with the doubts. Yeah. Because if we surrender to the wrong thing, we're kind of using spiritual veneer to be okay with situations that is not rewarding, it's not nurturing for us. It is not aligned with truth, so we're actually using our spiritual understanding in the purpose of something else. To achieve a goal, that might be the goal of the ego, that might be the goal of our fears. Yeah. That's why it's always so important or so valuable to be really attentive to the present moment. Surrender isn't a one solution that we can always use. No, we have to be mindful what we surrender to. Yeah. And one of the things that are easy to surrender to is to surrender to a spiritual teacher. To trust their words as though everything they say, I follow. Then we outsource our own truth, then we outsource our own compass. And if you want more on that topic, I have a whole video about believing a spiritual teacher and surrendering our own truth or abandoning our own truth. So have a look if that sparks curiosity. And other than that, I think we're approaching the end of this philosophical journey. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Have you surrendered to the wrong thing, or how do you even relate to surrender? I would love to hear, so please do share in the comment section. Yeah, And if you're new to my channel, then warmly welcome. My name is Josephine, and this is a space where we explore together, sharing perspective, trying to figure out what this thing called life is all about. And if you're a regular viewer, then I am very glad to have you back. See you next time.
Look at me sometime.